We are live, I believe. 10 viewers, it says. We've got 10 viewers. How's everyone doing? Can you hear me? I hope so. Gorba, can you hear me, brother? Marion, hi. Can you hear me? Let me see here. Should be good on my end. Someone let me know in the chat. Can you hear what I'm saying? My friend Downpour, how are you, brother? Can you hear me? Cool. Got the crew here. All right. So we're probably not going to screw around too much with the niceties because we've got a lot of tracks to get through. One thing I do want to say is that if you submitted a track, I have emailed you back and said that I received it, unless you didn't enable downloads or there was for some reason I wasn't able to download the track. And unfortunately for some of you, there were quite a few. I think I received around 30, 40, I don't know, a lot of tracks this time, which is cool, but it means two things. I do 2 hours, and today I really have to be strict with that. Unfortunately, I've got a whole shitload of things to do. I fly to Australia tomorrow for a big tour, which is super exciting, but it means I've got a lot going on. So the earlier you get your tracks in, the more likely it is you're going to get in. I'm going to do another one while I'm away for sure, at least one. I've got a few videos lined up to drop on the channel, but any of those weekends where I can't get a video up, I'll be doing a live stream of some description, either track feedbacks, maybe even with a special guest or something, we'll see. Yeah, but there's going to be some stuff going on like that. And if you're in Australia or New Zealand or New Caledonia or Saudi Arabia, then come to a show. Come and say hi. It's going to be cool. Yeah, but going forward, back to the live streams, going forward, make sure you get your tracks in early. Make sure that you enable downloads, follow all the instructions on the on Patreon. And let me just say, I do give some instructions on how to name the tracks, because I want to be able to get everyone's name right, say the name of your track right, and ideally I don't want to have to go through, read all your email, copy and paste shit and that kind of thing. So if I said, okay, if you don't name your track right, then I'm not going to review it, there would probably be about 4 tracks to review today. So please name your tracks right. Okay, let's get into it. First one, Gorba, also the first man in the chat. So nice. Let me see. Can you hear this? Let me know in the chat. Can you hear that? Can you hear that? Can you hear it? Yep. No. No. Okay, cool. Let's go. to a really nice start here. So I just want to point out here, this is like really good. It's simple intro. It works super well for DJing, but there are small, subtle changes happening. Like there's two things which I observe really commonly, which is that either things are, especially at the start, things are just like static and it's just like a really like a 1-bar loop or something, or they come in like too full on and then there's things coming in like in very quick succession. This is like, for me as a DJ anyway, this is what I want. I want something that sounds interesting, that's cool, that's not just like totally linear and boring, but doesn't have too much shit going on, because I've got a whole nother track playing while this is being mixed in, right? So I just want it to kind of like introduce the track steadily, but be interesting, be cool. But you know, it's subtlety I think is the key. So this is off to a really great start. Nice piano stab that's really gives some good like energy and drama. This is a really, really good track. It's super well made. The mix is fantastic. You can get this signed to a decent label, in my opinion anyway, to a decent label now. I will say that from about 2.5 minutes, you start to bring in quite a few different melodic elements, and it takes away from the theme a little bit. Like when those piano chords come in like really big and like really rich, is fantastic. Like it's a bit unexpected, it's quite unique, but it fits perfectly. And then this like acid riff that you've got going on, very nice. But there's a few different like kind of dubby delayed chords and stabs in there that, while they fit with the vibe of the track, all of these elements, and then there's this kind of like flute progression or something like that. All of these elements kind of fit well. I can't knock them in terms of like, but it's just the fact that they're all there together. It kind of takes away from the cohesiveness of the track, I think. So what I would suggest you to do is go through this like quite meticulously and remove anything that you think isn't really adding value to the track, because there are some things in there it's hard to know exactly without being able to turn things on and off, but I get the feeling that if you turned off some of these stabs, some of these little riffs, it might actually give a bit of space to the main kind of elements, because there's some really strong elements in there. Give it a try. But you could, like I said, I think you could sign it like this. It's fantastic. Really well done. Shit, we're off to a great start, guys. Phil Puccia, ID 1123. Okay, I get why people call their track ID or whatever, but it's because your favorite DJ does it when they're posting a mix and stuff. Give your track a name. It's, it helps you to remember it. It gives it some personality, and it helps to stay organized. Like when I make sketches for myself, I give them all a name. Sometimes it's just like a work in progress kind of name, but I give it like a real proper name, and it just helps me to keep track of everything, because I start a lot of tracks. I've got a lot going on, and that as I have progressed through my kind of production journey, the number of tracks that I've got on the go and that I've started over the years has increased exponentially. So if you get into a good habit of naming things, being organized as soon as you possibly can, it really has flow-on effects down the road. Boring, but I think it's helpful. The hats in this are, I think they're too loud, basically. Especially it feels really unbalanced with because you've got tambourines, hi-hats, maybe a shaker as well. It feels quite unbalanced for the lack of low end. Like I think I get why you cut the low end here from the kick, but I think you could leave a bit more. It's going to just make it sound a bit more solid. Okay, I was wrong. Your kick, I think, is probably too quiet. Or what's going on here? I think the kick doesn't have enough sub, basically, especially for the amount of highs. It just feels really unbalanced and there's no weight to the bottom end of the track. I like the atmosphere that you've got going on with this kind of crowd thing, but it's a bit high in the mix. It's making everything feel, it makes it quite harsh, and it feels like a bit overcrowded and claustrophobic. I think having a bit more low end in there would balance that out a bit, but it's hard to say. Oh. I think this has got a really cool vibe. I just, yeah, get a different kick, man. Get a kick with a, because it's got like, it's got a big sound and you've got a weak kick. So get something, get a 909 kick in there, man. Fuck. That's what 909 kicks are made for. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna leave this one. It's it's unfortunately a bit harsh to listen to. I think you've got a really good, cool, fun, housey groove here. Fix up that kick, bring down the highs a bit. It's hurting my ears. But the idea is really cool, Phil. So I don't want you to be discouraged. It's just the mix is a bit out of balance. I think you can really work with this. Just get things a bit more in balance. And so basically, I mean, I can, even if I am not listening to this, I can see here that this is all kind of out of whack just from looking at this. There's too much going on in the mids, the highs are really harsh, and it's lacking sub. So reading waveforms and spectrum analysis, and just, you know, you don't have to like rely only on this visual stuff, but using it in combination with listening and referencing, everyone I believe can get a pretty good balance on their mix, or get a good indication of what's going on with their mix and why it may or may not sound like what they want. Like their favorite tracks from their favorite producers. So if you do implement all those things, like referencing and listening and using some kind of spectrum analysis and looking at the waveform, learn to do those things well. You don't have to have a perfectly treated studio or amazing monitors or amazing headphones. You can use other tools as well. Okay, dunk. I'd bring this clap down a few dB. I like loud claps too. I always make my claps too loud when I'm writing. But I think in the club, this is just going to shred ears, man. Probably 5 dB, I'd bring that clap down actually. Especially with the amount of reverb on it. It's the reverbs from the clap is clashing a bit with the reverb from the other drums. I feel like the clap just sounds so much wetter. But it's cool. I think it's just a bit too overpowering in the mix. The rest of the groove and this bass line that's coming is really cool though. Really nice chords here, that's really cool. might be a taste thing, but this kind of strummy guitar, it feels like a bit flat, not the right word, like a bit thin, and I feel like it's detracting from the groove a bit. I would try muting it and see what you think, because it's a bit all over the place, and there's quite busy percussion and stuff. I don't know, I feel like it could be maybe better without it. This string that you brought in is really cool. I like it that it's very in front, but it feels like it might have a few harsh frequencies. I'm not going to turn it up too loud, but yeah, you might want to have a look at, see if there's anything a bit harsh happening in there. The sustained string dunk is what I mean. It just feels like it's, I don't know, when I hear it, I almost visualize the EQ spectrum of it having some harsh frequencies, but some resonant peaks, although that's kind of what a string is, but anyway. Yeah, man, maybe it's just a personal taste thing, but I thought this section here without the guitar feels a lot smoother. Yeah, Jason, agree. Some chorus on the string could be perfect, exactly what it needs. Maybe just like, what I like to do sometimes is use a very shallow roll-off on the top of the string as well. It can just take away some of the harshness around like 8K. I think there's space for a vocal in here as well. Like nothing, I mean, it could be something big, but yeah, I think it's a really cool vibe, man. I do feel like it feels a bit like a backing track. Like it could work in a set as like a filler track, but if I feel like for the vibe, it would be really cool with a vocal, and that would kind of bring it all together. Yeah, I wasn't feeling that guitar so much, and I liked the section without it, but that's yeah, it makes sense with the chick thing. Chic. I don't know. It's your choice. It's your track, man. For me, I felt like it was a bit more balanced and smoothed out without it, and I think getting a really cool vocal in there would be just like, yeah, like a vocal hook. You don't need to have a whole full verse, chorus. I don't know, something. Look up someone on Soundbetter. I think it's soundbetter.com, right? The place where it's like Fiverr, but for musicians. You can get like session musicians there, and yeah. All right, Ladiv, Desire. Hey, there's a few people asking in the chat, are we still accepting submissions? So I said at the start, I received more than 30 close to 40 tracks, and I am not even going to get through all of the ones that are in here, I don't think. We'll see how we go. If you send them, and if I've got time, I'll throw them in for sure. But I don't know if we're going to even get to the last ones that came in today. And if you don't see your track in here and you've already sent it, then it's not here because I wasn't able to download it. Albuquerque, I agree, bro. That track was sick, right? I feel like the vocal and maybe some of the percussion are kind of competing, especially in this breakdown part. Like the vocal sounded like it should be there, but it was pretty inaudible. And then when it plays here, it sounded really loud. So I think just maybe bringing out a few things in that breakdown will give more space for the vocal. But yeah, really cool drum groove, solid stuff. Yeah, so this kind of like mid-bassy sound, I feel like that's crowding the vocal. I would have the vocal player, because it's a cool element that you've just brought in. I'd have the vocal playing at one point, maybe here have the vocal playing, and then when it drops back in, maybe have the synth, and then you can alternate between those two. Just an idea. This is, I mean, it's a really cool track. I think it's getting a bit linear here, which is why I think using alternating between the synth and the vocal could work well to kind of define some different sections. And then it works well in here. There's a bit more space when the vocal and the acidy synth mid-bass kind of thing are playing without the percussion. But I think those three elements together make the track feel a bit crowded. Yeah. And then having some sections, like it kind of, everything comes in, it gets full on, and then everything kind of continues. So like having maybe a section where you cut out the vocal and the synth and then go back to the groove with the bass and the percussion, maybe add in a pad or a string or some other kind of tension element, and then go back to something else. Like I think just switching it up a bit and defining different sections with different stuff going on will help to break up it's kind of starting to feel a bit monotonous, but the whole idea and the groove is really cool. Ashton Hughes, sidetracking. Thanks for pointing out the volume on that one as well. I tried to like volume match everything to -9 dB. Quick side note, the reason I do that is to have consistent volume between everything. So if you master your track and it's -8 LUFS, I'm going to turn down the volume by 1 dB. But your track is still going to sound as compressed as you want it to be. Everything else is, all the other tracks are going to sound, I'm trying to make them sound like the same loudness. So this is something that they do on Spotify, and I think there's a big misconception amongst a lot of people that you should master your track to -14 LUFS for Spotify. If you do that, if you put compression, like before I've even put any limiting on my track, it's very rarely -14 LUFS. So and it doesn't sound the way I want it to sound. It sounds the way I want it to sound when I put the limiting on. What Spotify, then I think there's a misconception by the use of the word penalty and this website loudness penalty, right? That Spotify are turning down the volume of your track, and we assume that's a bad thing. The track sounds how you want it to sound, right? It sounds as compressed as you want it to sound, or that's what you should be aiming for. Spotify turn it down so that it doesn't sound louder or quieter than the track before and after it. They're trying to, it's not about your track, it's about the listener experience, right? So I think this idea that you're being penalized by Spotify turning it down is a misconception. What you probably do want to avoid, especially with house music and techno music, is having it undercompressed or too quiet, and then Spotify adding compression, algorithmic compression, because you don't have any control over that. But if you're trying to master your track to -14 LUFS, I think you're missing the point of what's going on here or there. Anyway, sorry Ashton for butting into your track to explain that. So a couple of things here. Like there's not much going on through the start. Like I said on the first track, which was really, really good, did this really well, Gorba. So Ashton, go back and check that out. There was you don't have to make it all deep like that. It's obviously a different style of track, but there's like little subtle things happening in the intro that keep it interesting, that keep your ears kind of moving, like paying attention to it. This sounds very, very linear, like it's literally a 1 bar or even like half bar, 1 measure loop for a lot of this section. Then when this bass line comes in, it's cool. It's an interesting bass line, but I think it's too busy. And what you could do and it's too busy, but it's all the same sound. So what you could do is split the bass line into two and have some note, because it almost sounds like melodically it's like a call and response type of thing going on in the bass line. So if you could split the bass line over two sounds and have one phrase playing and then another phrase like playing off of it, it's going to create a whole bunch more interest and a whole bunch more like depth to your track. I've got a couple of videos on this kind of thing, so I don't know, check one of those out. I'm actually doing, don't worry. But anyway, let's keep going. Also those effect sounds were way too loud. Yeah, just having some like kind of more incidental kind of hi-hats on the 16th notes will give a lot more groove here. You don't have to have anything crazy. And if you don't feel like your level of production is up to that, then just find a top loop and put it subtly in the background to have some information going on there. Or just play a hi-hat, put some ping pong delay on it, with some velocity variation and some stuff moving around in the sides. You'll be surprised how easy it is to actually get a little bit of texture and movement in the background subtly. You could use things like Tantra as a great way of doing this. Whoa, fuck. Yeah, so I think the mix is a bit chaotic. Like that snare rise just almost made me jump out of my chair. And this vocal texture thing that you've got going on, it's like a cool sound, but it's really muddy. It's taking up a lot of space in the mix. And I would say that in general, you've made a cool groove. It could be developed in a couple of ways, which I've mentioned, but it's lacking a theme or a hook or like what I recommend people to do when you're kind of starting out experimenting with things is not focus too much on the details. You know, don't worry about making this snare rise and adding these effects and stuff. First, get like some kind of concise theme. It can be a vocal, it can be a melodic theme, it can be a bass line that's interesting and engaging, it can be percussion, but just get something that's memorable and unique and like that people can hear and go, that's that track. This is, yeah, it sounds like a very much a work in progress, but for a work in progress to make progress, I think, or to get to take a work in progress to a functional finished track, I think it's important to have a strong theme. This kick is just way too high. It sounds like a mid bass. Let me just, for the sake of it, uh, 124. Let's bring this down by 5 semitones. Like the track sounds a bit fucked up in the top end, but the low end sounds way better. It's way more full. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like there's in house and techno music, I just don't think that there's a reason for having kicks at this high frequency. And if you find it difficult to source a kick that, like, by listening to it in a sample pack, then sample one from a track that you know has a big, strong, punchy kick that works in the club. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because you've got a really cool melodic theme going on here, really strong presence and sounds. It's not too crowded, so with that big punchy fat kick on the bottom, this is going to sound awesome, I think. Right now it sounds like someone like slapping on an empty cardboard box. Hang on, what happened there? So I don't think that works because you kind of come in here, build it, you take out the low end, and then you're like building up the energy in the mid-range with these elements, and then you drop out the mid-range elements, which takes away the energy, but you don't give anything back here. So it's kind of like going up and then drops to nothing. So it's a bit of a letdown. think you would be better to do this with the kick in and then drop it down to this. It's going to feel like more of a release. This feels like a like it's created tension and you haven't gotten the release. Maybe even better would be to have this build up with the kick in and then drop straight to this. It's going to be more dramatic, more intense. I can't handle that kick. It's such a shit kick. Guys, put your kick, a kick that's at playing at whatever this is, like C2 or something. C1. Yeah, it's too high. But yeah, I think apart from this section at the break, at the start of the break being a bit weird, you do a good job in the rest of the break. It builds up nicely. Change that kick and you've got a great track on your hands. So, well done. Okay, Paddy Beats, Sadly Strange. Just want to point out again, just to reiterate my point about downloads. Phil Mon, you sent through a track, which has just come in now, and you didn't enable downloads. So there's no way I can put that in here, mate.
I can feel you watching over, placing bets on my shoulder, whispering to my false fears, insecurity. I can feel.
The vocal is quite a bit too loud. It's got an auto-tune. My opinion, the auto-tune makes it sound a bit outdated. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's a subjective thing.
You watching over.
And the kick, again, I think it's playing the same key as the kick in this DO5 or DOS track. It's not as apparent in this because this is a more chilled track. In the DOS track it was really apparent because it's more, I guess it should be like a melodic techno, but it doesn't really sound like melodic techno with a weak kick. But yeah, again, just use a subby kick. I think kicks are supposed to be subby.
sad, strange little man.
Yeah, the mid-range on here is just a bit out of control. You can see it on the spectrum analyzer, and it doesn't have that subby kick to balance it out. That vocal that happened before the drop was a bit weird, I think. Totally unnecessary. It just took away from the vibe of the track. Because I mean, you do have, while the vocal isn't to my taste, you do have a vibe going on here. It's kind of like this neo R&B meets house kind of thing, which, yeah, it's cool, it's unique. But the mix is a bit chaotic. There's a lot of energy in the mid-range, not balanced out by a big sub, and the vocal's much too loud. There's not really much in the way of groove going on here. I would, in terms of the low end, like if I go, some kind of toms or bongos or something to groove against the kick would be really nice. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, just like dum dum boom dum dum boom dum, something, I don't know. I think I was going to say the mix, like everything sounds really loud, but I think it's just maybe the amount of compression you've got on here. Like, I've turned this down by 1 dB because it's compressed to -8 LUFS, which is not crazy. But then if I go in and look at the waveform, you can see how much limiting this has got going on. And I think having that loudness on a track that's got this fewer elements is probably what's making it feel like, because everything just feels really loud and in the front. There's not a lot of depth to it, which starts to make things feel a bit harsh and stuff like that. It's got a like the name indicates that it's supposed to be a kind of Italo, modern Italo disco take or something like that. I like this synth bass that's yeah, I think it's just way over. What I would do is ease back a lot on the mastering. It sounds like you're using the mastering to compensate for the mix. So I would try and get the mix working really well, ease back on the mastering, and get a bit of percussion going on just to keep it kind of interesting, fill up that low mid. But it's got a really cool vibe. I like, personally, I like this kind of style. Yeah, it's kind of, other than I like the vibe, is I can't really give too much feedback because it's smashed, it's too overcompressed to really hear details in it. But I think it's got a cool vibe. Oops, wrong one. Nice tight skippy groove here. I think some of these mid-range elements are a bit quiet, like this vocal and this like little synth riff that's come in. They're almost, because the drums are very punchy and very dominant in the mid-range, and then the bass has got quite a bit of mid-range in it as well. Like, I almost didn't register that these things had come in. Yeah, so I just bring them up a bit in the mix. Nice chords here. See, I think this is doing something really well, which is keeping it simple, but you've found a hook for the track. You're utilizing that hook. You're keeping it in the front. You've got enough things going on and like little edits and little breaks and fills and stuff that it doesn't get boring, but you're not just adding layers and layers and layers and layers, which starts to detract from the theme or the hook, you know. I think it's really good. I think just adjusting the mix so some of these mid-range elements are a bit more dominant will be perfect. The rides and this little vocal on the 16th note, I think it is, do a great job of like subtly increasing the tension in the background there. Nice introduction of the secondary hook. yeah, I think just fix up the mix a bit and try and like give precedence to the most important elements, because I think at the moment you've got the drums really in front and some of these kind of hooky theme elements are lacking a bit, some of the stuff that gives it the more personality and the more memorability. But in general, great, dude, love it. I think you could get that signed with a few tweaks to the mix. I can like, when I can imagine I can picture a setting where this is going to work, you know, like a nice afternoon outdoor, maybe like on a balcony or something, with like a really cool crowd, like just good times, fun, everyone smiling, you know, sick. My mate Downpour, well, let's see, we're generally in for a treat when we get one of his tracks, so I'm going to start skipping through these tracks a bit more quickly because I do want to fit in as many as I can, guys. So let's go. Now you see here how he's got these kind of mid-range percussion sounds which help to create a groove without taking up too much. They're subtle. There's space for when the bass line comes in, but it's not just like a kick and then this kind of empty gap in the frequency spectrum. You can also hear, you can see here, I've pulled the volume down on this to get it to -9 LUFS. So it's about as compressed as this Italo Deviance track was. But it sounds more open because he's gotten it to that point by mixing it and giving things space and placing them in the mix where he wants them to be, and then he's just increasing the compression and increasing the loudness with the limiter, not kind of like squashing everything to make it more of a consistent volume. I think you could have pulled the cutoff back on these chord stabs after this. So like bring them in, open it up like you did, and then pull it back. It's going to feel like it goes back to the groove a bit harder, I think. Then also, if you tighten up those stabs, you're going to have more space for when this riff comes in, because it's a really cool sounding riff. Yeah, I feel like these two riffs are kind of fighting for space here a little bit.
And by the words you speak every day, and every great work and big accomplishment must come through you, not to you.
nice call and response going on with the different melodic elements. I feel like the vocal in both points we've had it doesn't really have enough space. Like when you hear this loud in a club, you're not going to hear anything about what that vocal's saying, which I think you're not even going to really hear it. Having a place where you pull out some of the mid-range synth elements and then place the vocal would probably be the best thing. And if you don't want to do that, then it's kind of a matter of deciding, is the vocal necessary?
Create your own laws by what you think.
Yeah, so the vocal, I think, works here.
You create your own laws by what you think and by the words you speak every day. And every great work and big accomplishment must come through you, not to you. 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 Not to you.
Again, I feel like there's a lot going on in the different melodic elements. I think there might be a few too many. Like as the track's gone through, it's not like they don't sound like they fit, but I think you could like have some of them in different sections because they all kind of work, but when they're all working together, it feels a bit chaotic. Like specifically here.
Your own laws by what you think.
Like for me, this groove part here is like, this is like the best part of the track, which is a good thing because that's the important part, right? That's nailed. I think, like even if you had the vocal playing with this, there's more space for it. But so I think just reining in some of those synths, playing with the cutoff of some of them so that there's a bit more dynamics in the mid-range in terms of like having some sections where there's more mid-range and some sections where there's less, and then giving the vocal some space. But as always, really well made and really cool sound design. Yeah, another banger from Downpour. Agree, Jason. It is a good problem to have. I would have some of this mid-range percussion coming in earlier. It feels a lot more balanced with that synth being so open, or either that or like pull back the cutoff on the synth. I don't think it needs to be that loud in that section. I like the way that you're working with the filter though and changing things up on that sustained synth. It sounds sounds good, and the fact that it's subtly changing just keeps it interesting. this is a solid intro groove now. I feel like you probably could have dropped the bass line in there at like 45 seconds. Because you're starting to do things with these synths. That's stuff that you might do like quite a bit later on in the track once all the elements are in to build tension and release. And then you'd, like from a DJ perspective, you wouldn't even have the track mixed in because there's no bass line. Yeah, so I think drop the bass line in earlier, you could probably do, or hold off with some of the synths until a bit later. I think the bass might need a sub oscillator or something on it. Feels a bit mid-rangey. It's a cool sound, but it doesn't quite add the oomph with the big kick that you've got. A lot of this depends on the key of your track. Like when I get mixed projects through, a lot of the time they'll have a sub oscillator that is kind of unnecessary because the kick's doing all the work and the key of the track dictates that the bass sounds full enough without a sub layer or a sub oscillator on the synth. But sometimes you need it to kind of bridge the gap between the kick and the bass. But it's good that you've got separation there. I think you can always tell if you do this. The volume of the bass sounds about right, but the fullness isn't quite there. Nice. So now that you're getting into the track, it's really cool. I think just bring that bass line in earlier so that a DJ could mix it in and get the groove going before you start playing with the energy of the track too much. It's got a really nice, like almost like a floor plan, which is Robert Hood, right? You know, this kind of almost housey techno throwback.
Would you like to dance?
The vocal sounds like it's got a bit much of the low end cut out. It sounds a bit thin. This is Abram Clark asked, who's this? This is DJ Jack Cameron. I would say so far today this is my favorite track. It's definitely not the best executed, but I think that speaks a lot to the importance of, you know, the most important thing is getting a cool idea, a cool groove, some cool memorable elements that work. Like this this is really sick and really cool. It's simple, it's not overcomplicated, but it really works. And then if you tidy up some of these things like the bass, the arrangement a bit, the way that the tension and release flows through the track, then you've got a real banger on your hands. But it's good the way it is. Just yeah, really sick. I love it's just I don't know how to explain it. It's just a vibe. It's great. I can picture it just going off in the club. Oyala. In I don't know how to say that. I'm not even going to try. Jack Cameron, if you look at the spectrum of this synth here, this bass synth that's playing, you can see there's like a quieter sub-oscillator back here, which sounds to me like yours is missing. So something like that is exactly what I'm talking about. I think the like synth elements are a bit too loud in this, and the low end is a bit too quiet, and like you can see from the waveform that it doesn't have any mastering or anything on it, and you probably aren't hearing that it's too loud because you don't have limiting on it. So I'm adding limiting to bring it up to a consistent loudness with the other things. But that limiting is pushing the quieter elements louder and the louder elements quieter. And so that's why I always recommend people to mix. You don't have to mix how you want, but I find it helpful for me I mix with a limiter on. But at the very least, you should be mixing and listening with a limiter, because your track is going to be limited. So if you just check a loudness meter, a free one is called Julian loudness meter, and chuck a limiter, use the Ableton one, doesn't matter, turn down the threshold until you get to like -9, -8 LUFS, and then evaluate how loud the relative elements in your track are and how your mix is going to sound when it's mastered. If you listen to this, if I put a low shelf here, pump that up by a few dB, and then maybe the hats could come up a touch as well. I don't know, to me anyway, that sounds a lot more balanced and a lot more, I think, how you want your track to sound. I think you're trying to make a track in a style maybe like mine, like Gorge, Marcus Homm, that type of thing. And I think the vibe is really there, but it's really important to have that solid, strong bass foundation to build the rest of this on. And the atmospheric elements should be atmosphere, not like overpowering in the front. feel like you're kind of bringing in elements, but not taking anything out. Seems to have been a bit of a theme for a few tracks today. I'm a big fan of like having more elements than I need in a track, but kind of switching them up and having different combinations of elements at different times, taking things in and out rather than just building everything up, maintaining it, and then building everything down. I think it just helps to keep things interesting throughout the track. And also by giving the different elements, like this ARP that just came in, some space to exist, makes it more of a powerful element. It makes it more dramatic when it comes in. Agreed, Jason. That synth that he's got, that big buzzy one, is really cool. I think it's got a bit too much going on in the low mids. I think if you put an EQ on the bass, where are we? Yeah, something like this on that big like distorted bass stab that comes in. I think something like this will yeah, something like around there sounds about right. It just kind of, it makes it feel a bit tighter, but I agree, it's a really cool sound. It's maybe a bit loud as well, but you want to have it strong in the mix. Anyway, I'm going to move on, but this is a really cool track. You've got a bit of work to do on the mix, and maybe with the arrangement, the way different elements come in and out, but it's fantastic, man. It sounds to me like you're nailing the sound that you want to nail, so that's great. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to quickly check this track from Albuquerque because I've already heard it before and I just want to see where he's at. So I'm going to do that for myself, but it's a really cool track. It's a collaboration with Denox. How good is that synth? That like harpy 16th note acidy kind of thing. I feel like instead of this like kind of weak sounding chordy synth, you could have had something more mid-rangey and aggressive, like, which is going to kind of break it up and make it just be a bit more intense, because like yeah, I think you could even layer it with like a sub or something tough in the low end, but you know, now we're getting really into the details. It's fucking dope. yeah, Jean-Paul, more intense, like Art Bat. Not quite that intense, but yeah, definitely something a bit more. They use a lot of like really distorted, aggressive mid-bass kind of sounds. Yeah, Ricardo, this is awesome. Get it mixed and it's done, man. It's fucking awesome. Well done. Just don't overthink it. I know you're always overthinking shit.
Funky.
I think this bass has got a bit, this kick has got a bit much. If you pull out some of the low mids on the kick, it might sound a bit tighter. I don't know. Maybe try and find a different kick. It just sounds a bit weird for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why.
Funky.
I think you want to work on the groove and the percussion of this. It's just it's not grabbing me. You've got some really cool sound design in here. I don't know. I'm struggling to kind of picture what the ideal version of this track would be, like who reference would be. But do some referencing. Listen to what your ideal version of this track would be by someone else and try to figure out what's the difference, what's the missing element here. I think for me it's the percussion. Drums and percussion are really important for me. I don't know. I think you've got some really cool sounds going on here, but it's not grabbing me. Yeah, like Jason said here. Moving on. We're got half an hour left. Yeah, Gabriella, I don't think I'm going to get to your track, man. I'm probably not going to get all of these done. I've said it a couple of times, but now it must be 40 tracks sent. And yeah, so next time, get in early and make sure downloads are enabled. to raise the volume of the bass line up by maybe 2 or 3 dB. Just going to fill up a bit more space and make the track sound a bit more full and balanced. Really cool vibe. I think some of the synths are a bit too loud. I've added 1 dB of gain reduction using a limiter to bring it up to -9, and I think that's pushing up some of the synths a bit. But that's a pretty normal loudness for this style. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this, like taking the bass line out all the time. I get why you're doing it, but I think I would try maybe filtering the kick and leaving the bass line in. Yeah. I just feel like it takes away a lot of the energy from the track.
Giving yourself permission to be so human, so present in your body right here, right now.
Really cool track. Like, I think if you fix that bass line up and maybe a few of these bits with the arrangement, I'm not sure, maybe if the bass line was a bit louder, it might fix that issue I'm having, but where I feel like it loses energy when you take the bass line out. But I think the vibe of the track is fucking awesome. I love the meditation vocal, fits exactly with the creates like a cool theme. The sound of the track and the theme of the vocal are working really well together. Yeah, I think it's dope. Rajesh, let's go. Jason, it's a cool trick that you could use subtly from time to time, I would say, but as the default way to create a breakdown, I think because you've still got a lot of energy when you leave the kick there. So I think, yeah, doing it, you could have that as something different from time to time, but doing it as the default way, I think, doesn't work. Or for long phrases as well, it feels a bit weird. Rajesh, again, this is absolutely sick. Your tracks are phenomenal, dude, and we need to get them signed. So I'm going to catch up with you in Sydney and let's talk about it. I'm going to quickly skip through this. I'd love to listen to it all day, but there's people on here that need more help than you. I don't think I could write tracks this lush and beautiful. so good, man. Every track he sends me is so good. What I want to hear from you, Rajesh, is where you have sent the demos to. Not whether you're going to send the demos, where you've sent the demos to. This has got a really good foundation. This synth that you've brought in, that's kind of like the lead or the hook, I feel like it's a bit weird, it's a bit robotic. So this is really good. That stab, I feel like you could bring the cutoff back a little bit and keep it a bit tighter. But this part of the track just sounds like really good. I can like picture that at a big rave, you know. But this, so there's some cool sounds in there, but when this comes in, no. Yeah, that kind of thing. It just sounds a bit like, I don't know. This sounded like an awesome pro track, and that riff sounds a bit amateur. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt your feelings if that does. I think you might even be able to get away without it, just because the foundation is really solid. Yeah, I mean, it's not my style of music, Ollie, so maybe I'm not the best one to be giving advice on what's the appropriate hook for that, but it doesn't, I would say that the hook doesn't do justice to the rest of the track. The rest of the track sounds awesome, and I think if you get the right hook on top of that, you're onto a winner for sure. I don't know if I'm the right person to be giving feedback on this. It's kind of, it doesn't sound like a club track to me, and I predominantly do club music and work with artists who do club music. But I think you've got some really cool foundations to it. This riff that comes in sounds a bit like robotic and repetitive, and kind of it's also like overbearing the mix a bit. But again, this is another one I don't really have a reference point in mind of like what the ideal version would sound like. It sounds like, I think it's something that's not necessarily to my taste. But if I had a reference track, I could tell you, oh, if you want it to sound a bit more like this, you could do X, but I just don't know exactly what you want it to sound like. But I don't feel that main riff has a lot of like humanized feeling. It sounds very much like it's being played by a MIDI device, using some of the Ableton Live devices like I think this is called the Velocity plugin. So you chuck that on and it randomizes the velocity of the notes. So when you're playing a chord, each one of those notes in the chord is going to be different velocity each time that it plays, which helps to give it a real humanized feel. And then also you can add some swing or something like that, or you could go in and change the velocity of every note by hand, move them slightly on and off the grid, just get some like randomization going in there, because it just felt a bit robotic.
Now I know it ain't gonna hurt no more, no more. Without your love.
Cool kind of Strictly Rhythm vibe. I really like it. I feel like this horn sound isn't really doing justice to the rest of the track. It feels a bit, it might just be a bit of EQing to give it a bit more space, make it feel a bit tighter. Also the rhythm and the melody feel a bit robotic. If you could, like when I referenced Strictly Rhythm there, you know, it's old 90s US predominantly, or US inspired house music. And a lot of them were using session musicians to do the music elements, or sampling live, you know, something that was played by real musicians. So basically, if you took this and went on to Sound Better or something like that, got a horn player or something to do, say, this is what I've got, and I want it to be a bit more humanized, add your own take on it, do a bit of improvisation, you know, you could get something really cool that is unique and perfect for your track. That would be my idea. We've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to skip through these as quickly as possible, just so I can try and give everyone a little piece of advice, or at least get them a little bit of play. Solid chunky bass there. Okay, this sounds very much like a sketch or a work in progress. I think you're going for that kind of modern solid grooves, Michael Beebe kind of style, I would imagine. In order to get that, I think you need a bit more like toughness and back and forward in the mid-range percussion, a bit more intensity there. Maybe tightening up some of the drums as well. You've got this kind of like very loose bongo kind of thing, so grabbing, let's just go like this, warp from here straight. So just on those percussion loops, if you use live, you set it to like this and then just pull it in tight, and then you can also go like that, command U to what do you call that, quantize it. You're doing this to your percussion, remember, and then add like some swing like that way, then you're going to get it a bit closer to that solid grooves kind of sound, I think. This has got a vibe for sure. Yeah, cool vibe, Houston. Like I said, guys, we're just going to kind of race through these and make sure everyone gets at least heard. Luca, in hoping for some sick breakbeat lushness. I feel like you need a bigger kick on this one, bro. It's just not holding up to, yeah. Yeah, I think this is almost there. The bass the bass is cool. Like the vibe of the track is cool. I just feel like the kick needs to be a bit fatter. Yeah, that's my take. But cool vibe as always, dude. Really love your stuff. My mate Dickie Clare just had his first release yesterday. Congrats, Dickie. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. And sounding sick. I saw you got also featured on Deep House in Beatport, so off to a good start, bro. Oh. Luca, I think a different kick, man. Holy shit, dude, this sounds really good. This sounds like one of the best initial tracks that you've sent me. Yeah, the mix is a bit chaotic, but this is really, really good, dude. I think just always save a version, but try and do a bit more work on like tightening up some of the things. That bit where you automate the vocal to get louder doesn't really work. I think this you can just see it in the waveform basically. This is just too much. There's too much mid-range energy there. It gets harsh. And I don't know about this snare roll. It adds a lot of intensity. Then this vocal happens, and then there's a break. Then you've got this fill. I get what you're doing, but I think it doesn't quite work. I think you lose the intensity, and then you don't quite get it back with this. I'm not sure. There's definitely a more elegant way to do that. But this is really good, man. Just keep working on it a little bit. Don't change too much. It's just the details. So that's fucking awesome. DM me and we'll figure it out. And it's gonna need mixing. All your drums sound really centered and quite dull, and like there's maybe no reverb on them or something. Yeah, everything it sounds like you've got no reverb on anything in your track, which is quite weird. I think it could be a cool track. It's just I think that sound is cool, but it's got a bit much mid-range in it. Maybe pull back the cutoff, get it a bit more restrained. I don't know, mate. I think and then you need some more kind of higher elements to balance out that big bass line. Yeah, it's a bit chaotic. But I think you're heading in the right direction of where you want to go, so that's good. Just keep on it. This is a vibe. Great vocal. I love that. Hang on. Cool vibe. Gabriello, I'm not sure if you're still watching, but you sent your track really late, bro. I was going to try and get it in here, but you haven't enabled download. And I even mentioned that when you had sent the track. So, guys, I'm going to do another stream in the next kind of 2 to 3 weeks while I'm on the road. I just have to find a Sunday that works. There will be some. So, yeah, I'll post in Patreon, on YouTube, and on Instagram, and probably Facebook when I'm going to do it. But I'll keep you up to date. So, some really, really sick tracks today. And it's funny. There always seems to be like a different theme of like what's going on with the tracks. Keep your kick drums subby. That would be like a big easy win, I think, for everyone. It's just like keep your kick drums subby. If you don't know how to do that, or you don't know if you've got the right kick, reference it. Always reference. Referencing doesn't mean copying. It just means like being your track with someone else's that you know is awesome, and trying to see what's the difference. It doesn't mean comparing your track to your hero's track and saying, oh, my track's not good enough. It means like trying to understand what's the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and trying to see the details, the missing elements, and go, okay, that's what it is. Or just like, why does it have energy after the drop and mine doesn't have energy after the drop? Or like, yeah, just trying to see the difference. Thanks so much, guys. I've got a new EP out on Bondage Music. Links on all my socials. I think it came out yesterday, and I think all 3 tracks are already in the Deep House Top 100 on Beatport. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all the support on my music. And if you're in Australia, come along to a show. I want to, also a remix I did for Australian label Valiant for Jared Marston is like number 8 in the ARIA club charts. So that's sick. So obviously you Aussies are liking what I'm doing, so come to a show. We're going to do it. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much to everyone who sent in their tunes. I always appreciate it. It's always nice to hear some fresh stuff. If I wasn't able to give you the best feedback for reasons like I'm not familiar with that genre, then sorry about that. But I do the best that I can. All right, guys. Take it easy. Peace. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.